The season ends in the divisional round, and there is no easy way to dress that up. The Chicago Bears walk off the field knowing they let one slip away, falling by a score of 20-7 in a game that never felt out of reach, but somehow kept drifting just beyond their grasp. This was not a night where the opponent dominated from start to finish or imposed their will in every phase. In many ways, it was the kind of playoff game where execution, discipline, and composure decide everything. And that is exactly where the Bears came up short. From the opening drive, there was a sense that the Bears were ready to play. The energy was there, the defense came out flying, and the offense moved the ball with purpose early. The chance to strike first was right in front of them, the kind of moment that can set the tone for an entire night. A well-designed play created separation, the ball was delivered where it needed to be, and the opportunity for an early touchdown was real. When that moment slipped through their hands, it felt small at first, just another missed chance in a long game. But football has a way of magnifying those moments, especially in January, and that drop lingered over everything that followed. Momentum in playoff football is fragile, and once it tilts, it can be incredibly difficult to pull back. Shortly after that missed opportunity, the Bears pressed, trying to reclaim control with aggression rather than patience. A decision to go for it on fourth down reflected confidence, but the execution betrayed the call. An interception flipped the field, and suddenly the Rams were marching the length of it, capitalizing on a short field and swinging the emotional balance of the game in a matter of minutes. What could have been an early Bears lead instead became a painful reminder of how quickly games at this level can turn. Despite that, the response from the Bears deserves recognition. They did not fold, and they did not panic. The offense regrouped, found its rhythm again, and managed to tie the game. For a stretch, it felt like the early mistakes might be absorbed and overcome. The defense, in particular, settled into the game beautifully, tightening coverage, creating pressure, and forcing the Rams to work for every yard. There is nothing fluky or soft about the way the Bears defended for most of the night. They tackled well, communicated effectively, and kept one of the league's most experienced quarterbacks uncomfortable far more often than expected. That defensive performance should have been enough to win a playoff game. Holding an opponent to 17 points in regulation, limiting the running game, and consistently disrupting timing through pressure is usually a recipe for success. The Rams did not move the ball efficiently, and their quarterback missed throws he normally makes. The Bears were in position to turn those mistakes into game-changing plays, but the ball never seemed to bounce their way. Forced fumbles were not recovered, tipped passes refused to fall into waiting hands, and potential momentum-shifting moments slipped away again and again. On the offensive side, the stat line does not tell the full story, especially when it comes to the quarterback. The numbers suggest an uneven night, but the film shows a player who largely did his job. He made anticipation throws, stood tall under pressure, and delivered the ball accurately in key moments. Too often, those throws were not rewarded. Drops at critical times stalled drives, erased manageable down-and-distance situations, and forced the offense into predictable passing scenarios. When the margins are this thin, every dropped pass feels heavier, every missed block more costly. Short yardage situations became a recurring problem, and that issue loomed larger as the game wore on. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, these are moments where playoff teams assert themselves physically, and the Bears simply did not do that consistently enough. The lack of push up front turned manageable situations into desperation plays, and that pressure led to forced decisions and unnecessary risks. It is hard to win in January when you cannot reliably gain a single yard when you need it most. As the game moved into the later stages, the sense of missed opportunity grew stronger. This was not a matchup where the Bears were overwhelmed by talent or scheme. Yardage totals favored Chicago. Time of possession was competitive, and explosive plays were there to be had. Yet every time it felt like the Bears were on the verge of taking control, something went wrong. A penalty at the wrong time, a miscommunication on a route, a failure to execute a basic assignment all chipped away at their chances. The frustration comes from knowing how close it was. This was not a blowout, not a game decided early in the third quarter. It was a slow burn, a series of self-inflicted wounds that added up to the final score. In the playoffs, teams rarely beat themselves this clearly and still stay competitive, but that is exactly what happened here. The Bears stayed within striking distance despite committing multiple critical errors, which only deepens the disappointment. There is also the reality that playoff games are remembered for defining moments, and the Bears had several chances to create theirs. A clean catch in the end zone, a successful conversion in short yardage, a takeaway on defense. Any one of those could have shifted the narrative entirely. Instead, those moments belonged to the Rams, not because they were spectacular, but because they were steady and mistake-free when it mattered most. As the clock wound down and the outcome became inevitable, the feeling was less about anger and more about emptiness. This was a game the Bears could have won, maybe even should have won, if they simply played cleaner football. The margin was not talent, effort, or preparation, but execution in the most critical moments. That is what makes this loss linger, and that is what will be replayed in the minds of players and coaches long after the season officially ends. When the game pushed into its later stages, the emotional weight of every snap became heavier, and that is where the Bears truly felt the cost of their earlier mistakes. Overtime should have been a moment of belief, a reward for resilience after forcing the game beyond regulation. The stadium buzzed with that familiar sense of possibility, the idea that somehow, despite everything that had gone wrong, the Bears still had a path to steal this one. The defense did its job again, coming out with urgency and forcing a stop that felt massive in the context of the night. In that moment, it genuinely felt like momentum had finally swung. The offense moved the ball into opposing territory, and for a brief stretch, everything seemed aligned. Protection held up, the quarterback had time, and the play design created space against the coverage. These are the moments that define playoff legacies, when precision and trust must override fatigue and pressure. Unfortunately, what unfolded instead became another example of miscommunication at the worst possible time. The ball was thrown to a spot, not a player, based on timing and expectation, and the receiver was not there. That fraction of hesitation, that slight drift in the route, was all the defense needed. The interception that followed felt cruel, not just because it ended the drive, but because it symbolized the entire night in one play. From there, the ending felt inevitable. The Rams, steady if unspectacular, did just enough to put themselves in position to win. A few completions, smart clock management, and then the final kick that sealed the result. There was no dramatic collapse, no last-second miracle to save the Bears this time. Just the quiet realization that the season was over, and it ended not with domination by an opponent, but with a collection of missed details that added up to defeat. Looking back at the overall performance, it is impossible to ignore how well the defense played relative to the final score. Pressure was consistent, coverage was disciplined, and adjustments were effective. This unit gave the Bears a chance to win against a dangerous opponent on a big stage, and that should not be lost in the disappointment. Holding a playoff-caliber offense in check for most of the night is not easy, and it speaks to growth, preparation, and belief on that side of the ball. Offensively, the evaluation is more complex. There were flashes of exactly what this team can be, moments where the timing, creativity, and confidence all aligned. The quarterback showed why there is so much excitement about his future, delivering throws that few players can make and keeping the Bears alive when the game threatened to slip away. At the same time, football remains the ultimate team sport, and no quarterback can overcome repeated breakdowns around him. Drops, missed blocks, and failed assignments undermine even the most talented playmakers. The most frustrating part is that these were not issues of being outmatched physically or schematically. These were correctable mistakes, the kind that come down to focus, technique, and trust. Catching the ball cleanly, executing a route with conviction, getting a single yard when it matters. These are the fundamentals that separate teams that advance from teams that go home. The Bears were close, painfully close, but close does not count in January. There is also an element of bad luck that cannot be ignored, even if it should never be used as an excuse. Turnovers are often about timing and randomness, and the Bears found themselves on the wrong side of that equation repeatedly. Forced fumbles that bounced the wrong way, tipped passes that refused to fall into waiting arms. These moments compound frustration because they feel out of anyone's control. Still, the best teams find ways to overcome that variance, and that is the standard the Bears are now chasing. As the season ends, the emotional response is complicated. There is pride in how far this team has come, excitement about the foundation that has been built, and genuine belief that the most important pieces are in place. At the same time, there's a lingering sense of what could have been. This was not a season that ended because the Bears were lucky to be there. It ended because they were good enough to expect more, and that expectation changes everything moving forward. The challenge now shifts from proving potential to delivering consistency. The league does not wait, and windows can close faster than anyone expects. The Bears have announced themselves as a team that belongs in meaningful January games, but the next step is becoming a team that wins them. That requires ruthless attention to detail, honest evaluation of weaknesses, and a commitment to improvement across the roster. This loss will hurt for a long time because it was within reach. It will replay in the minds of players as individual moments, each one tied to a different decision or action. At the same time, it should serve as fuel rather than a scar. The experience of playing and losing in a game like this often becomes the foundation for growth. The Bears now know exactly how thin the margin is and exactly what it costs when you fall on the wrong side of it. What makes nights like this linger is the clarity of the lessons they leave behind. Every snap exposed areas that must improve if this team wants to take the next step, not in theory, but in reality. The Bears saw firsthand how playoff football punishes hesitation and lack of precision. Routes must be run with absolute conviction, assignments must be executed without second-guessing, and communication has to be flawless when the margin is razor-thin. These are not abstract ideas. They're tangible moments from this game that will live on film and in meeting rooms all off-season. There is also a psychological component that cannot be overlooked. Playing with expectation is different from playing with hope, and this season marked a clear shift for the Bears. They were no longer just happy to be competitive. They believed they belonged on this stage. That belief is powerful, but it also brings pressure. Learning how to manage that pressure, how to stay composed after an early setback, and how to avoid pressing when things go wrong is part of becoming a consistent winner. This game was a reminder that confidence must be paired with discipline, especially when adversity hits early. As the offseason approaches, these moments will inevitably shape every decision that follows. Personnel choices, schematic tweaks, and philosophical adjustments will all be influenced by what was exposed in this loss. The Bears do not need to reinvent themselves, but they do need to refine who they are. Strengthening the areas that failed under pressure and reinforcing the standards required in critical situations will define whether this experience becomes a stepping stone or just another painful memory in franchise history. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. An unbelievable twist is quietly circulating through league circles, and it has the potential to reshape the entire postseason narrative. According to growing whispers inside the NFL ecosystem, league officials may have internally acknowledged a serious procedural error tied to a recent playoff decision, one significant enough to reopen discussions about competitive integrity at the highest level. While nothing has been made official, sources suggest the situation is being treated with unusual urgency behind closed doors. At the center of the speculation are the Chicago Bears, a franchise not traditionally associated with administrative controversies of this magnitude. The rumor points to a misapplication of league protocol involving officiating review processes and eligibility criteria, allegedly overlooked until after the decision had already influenced the playoff landscape. The belief among insiders is that the error was not a judgment call, but a technical violation of established NFL rules, which makes the matter far more delicate. What has fueled even more intrigue is the possibility of a corrective measure without precedent in the Super Bowl era. Some around the league speculate that the NFL, in an effort to protect its credibility and avoid prolonged legal or public disputes, could move toward an extraordinary resolution that would effectively secure the Bears a place in Super Bowl 60. Such a move would be framed not as favoritism, but as restitution for a competitive disadvantage caused by the league itself. Naturally, skepticism remains high. Critics argue that the NFL has historically avoided retroactive solutions that alter championship paths, preferring to absorb controversy rather than rewrite outcomes. Still, the silence from league headquarters and the lack of categorical denials have only intensified speculation. Agents, executives, and media figures continue to read between the lines, sensing that something highly unusual is unfolding. If the rumor proves accurate, the implications would extend far beyond one team. It would challenge long-held assumptions about accountability, governance, and the limits of league authority. For now, the story lives in the realm of speculation, but it is a rumor powerful enough to make the entire football world pause and wonder what comes next. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.